Okay, good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Memphis Horticultural Society's program for May. Our speaker tonight is Mike Minnis, who is with his wife, Karen. Together, they founded Landmark Training and Development in the historic Orange Mound community in Memphis. Landmark operates a year-round farmers market, an urban farm, a food pantry, and an apprentice program that engages urban youth in life skills such as self-reliance and teamwork and connects in the outdoor world. Landmark also provides opportunities for young people participating in the county's juvenile court community service program, and more than 300 youths have successfully completed the diversion program through Landmark. Mike's originally a Chicago native, and that's where he met Karen, and he has previously worked in commercial investment banking, owned a construction company, and he and Karen have 4 adult children who have graciously provided them with grandchildren to love and spoil. Now, this is a little bit different program tonight because Mike is going to just tell his stories. And if you have questions, please put them in the chat box and we'll make sure that he gets a chance to address those. And so at this point, Mike, I'm going to turn the microphone over to you.
Hello, everybody. I appreciate you having us here this evening and am hopeful that I might present something that will be of benefit to someone. We don't have a pretense to the extent that it's our belief that no one has cornered the market on good ideas. So, in as much as we'll describe things that you're probably familiar with, I hope that it draws you to a connection that you can hereafter act upon if you have been a procrastinator. One of the things that I'm not necessarily subtle about is food. We all have choices to make, and the fact of the matter is you are what you eat. There's been instances where drug addicts have given up drugs, alcoholics have given up alcohol, but I've yet to find anyone who stuck around and gave up food. So it's needless to say that we all need food. And under the circumstances that we are in right now, with the supply being held up and the demand being constant, we all are recognizing that prices are going up. Not necessarily the quality, but the prices are going up on the various things that we have enjoyed over the however long we've been buying food. You know, some of us have the good fortune of someone else buying it for us. But it bothers me sometimes when I see this nice and shiny food and I bite into it and it's got no taste. You've bought this stuff, it looks so pretty, but it's got no taste. Why is that? Well, there's a myriad of reasons, primarily stemming from commercialization, to the extent that some food is grown with endurance and travel in mind, knowing that it has to have an extended shelf life in order for it to make it to its destination, coming from 1,000, 1,500 miles away. Likewise, you have many local producers whom have developed methods that don't utilize various pesticides and herbicides. And while they may not have an abundant supply to offer, when you get a hold of theirs, you notice the difference in taste. And for those of us who are backyard gardeners, we know there's a difference in the taste between the food that we grow and the taste of the food that you get from the major food suppliers. So with that in mind, knowing that we are what we eat, I'd like to take us back to a place in time prior to World War II. At that point in time, people grew their own food. It was basically, America was basically a rural country. And also during that time, doctors made house calls in order to make a living. basically because people wasn't getting sick. I mean, the doctor would put a cast on a broken arm, a broken leg, stamp the birth certificate where the midwife had delivered a baby. But in order to make a living, doctors had to hustle because they didn't have a waiting room full of people. And I believe it was primarily because people grew their own food without pesticides and herbicides, which has already proven itself to cause internal problems in the human body. So let's put some recognition on this idea of the human body. We have what they consider to be essential elements that make up our physical composition. Some of those elements are minerals like phosphorus, manganese, iron, zinc. Quite often, we have to get a multivitamin to try to keep those things in our system. But the fact remains that they come in a shallow second place to the actual plants that possess these items in abundance. So it would behoove us to recognize those things that transpired during the period of time when America was a rural country are still available to us today. I could envision being able to go in your backyard with a pair of scissors and clip the items that you need instead of taking a prescription to a pharmacy. So it's right here and available to us to make the choice. You see, we really don't have any control over time. That is to say, we cannot predict longevity. No one knows how long they're going to live. But we have within our control the ability to have a certain quality of life. And a lot of it, in my opinion, revolves around what we eat or what we don't eat. It's understandable that you may not be able to get the best fresh fruits and vegetables year round because a lot of the plants may not grow in this region, but that does not circumvent our ability to make them available while they are available, to preserve some of them so that we still have them available during the months that they're not in abundance. You see, right now, farmers markets all across Memphis are open. They open from April through October typically. There's a couple of them like ours in the Agri Center that's open year round because we're indoors and we have, various high tunnels and other things that we use to grow food year round. But for the most part, the abundance of fresh produce that's grown locally is available between April and October. So to be able to obtain some of this fresh food in abundance gives us the ability to get out our mason jars or ball jars or those type of canning supplies that are necessary and put them in position so that when December, January, February, and March comes, we still have access to wholesome food. Takes a little planning, takes a little work, but who are you doing it for? You're doing it for yourself. And it's a good idea. Think about it. You work for who? And when it's all said and done, if you're not being good to yourself, what is it all about? So all of us, again, are not desirable or do not desire to grow food in our backyard or front yard. I, for one, have never really been a fan of grass because I can't eat it. It's labor intensive. And it's a constant job that really doesn't give you much reward except, some curb appeal. Curb appeal's got its place, particularly if you're in the business of buying and selling houses, because that's one of the things that people admire and allow them to want to come in to an open house, curb appeal. But outside of that, for me, I could appreciate different flowers and floral arrangement, landscaping in a lot of instances gives you a certain comfort level that you can sit and relax in, and I can appreciate that. But again, knowing that we have limited space, I want to put it to what's called the highest and best use. And for me, that's growing food again, because everybody got to eat. And my preference is to eat. And, people ask me, Mike, how do you figure out what to grow? Well, guys, my answer is simple. I grow the stuff my wife likes to eat. I just look dumb. I grow the stuff she likes to eat, and I've become accustomed to eating it as well. Quite often, I taste a lot of stuff while out in the backyard, different parts of our garden. I nibble on this, nibble on that. And we do tours, and during the tours, I like to kind of quiz people. You know, we'll see what this herb is or what that herb is based on taste. Some people who've been around can make that judgment based on leaf patterns, which if you ever have been in the Girl Scouts or the Boy Scouts, that's one of the things you learn is to recognize plants by their leaf patterns. So if there's some circumstance under which you are without the normal provisions and you're in a forest or similar type environment for an extended period, you won't starve. But that brings me to another point that we utilize at our urban farm. Our method for growing food tries to emulate that which occurs out in the forest. I mean, if you go out in the forest, you go out in the jungle, nobody's out there tending to it, right? It's just grows on its own, naturally, without help from mankind. And that's basically one of the best approaches there is. I mean, let's face it, this stuff was growing before we got here. So the process is simple. Leaves fall to the ground as seasons change. They decay, naturally enhancing the soil's qualities. And while in the decaying process, different microbes come in and take rest, find a place, and they do what they do to enhance the soil quality. So consequently, those various aspects of the natural process help maintain soil fertility. And when you start, one of the most important things you can start with is fertile soil. Without fertile soil, your plants are not going to thrive. So soil fertility, in my opinion, has been the mainstay of what we do at our urban farm. And for the most part, we try to utilize natural processes. One of the things that we do is soil testing. And years ago, when we did some of our first soil tests, we noticed that soil was low in nitrogen. Well, down the street from our place, there's a park. And alongside the park, there's maybe about 20 or 30 pine trees in a row. And I noticed no grass grows around those pine trees. And I thought about it some more and I looked into it some more and I found out that the pine needles are so high in nitrogen that it burns the grass up. Well, I started gathering pine needles and I put them around different places in our garden and had the children, because we have children that come to us from juvenile court and the various local high schools and elementary schools. 12 to 18 is the typical ages we work with. And I'd had them trounce up and down, up and down, up and down, where they are basically grinding down the pine needles and allowing the pine needles to leach into the soil. Well, needless to say, that fall when we did our soil test, we had all zeros. The nitrogen count had gone up, basically because of the pine needles. Number one, It was a natural input into the soil. And number two, and maybe this one should be number one, the price was the price I like. We just had to go down there and bag it up. And sometimes when I go to different places, there'll be these long trailers in the parking lots of major retail operations. And they'll have this big banner on the side of the trailer, bales of pine straw, $12 a bale. And every time I get a 40-gallon bag of pine needles, I think of the $12 that I've taken out of this pocket and put in this pocket. And again, it's a natural process. And one of the things that I read recently is that many of the people who grow pine trees had been allowing their pine trees to be harvested. And it takes approximately 10 years for their pine trees to grow back. And one was noted as saying that he would get $4,000 for his pine trees. And he started selling the pine needles and he'd get $1,400. Well, if you get $1,400 a year for 10 years, you're making more money than you would have if you had cut the pine trees down and got 4,000, had to wait 10 years to get that 4,000 again. So you'll find more pine needles readily available nowadays than they were some time ago for that reason alone. More people are catching on to the fact that this natural process has numerous benefits to it outside of just looking good, because the earth tones, man, the earth tones have always been a mainstay. When our boys were growing up, when they started getting of age where it was time for them to start buying their own clothes, I wanted them to learn money management, and I give them X amount of money. I said, look, you can go buy the name brands if you want to, but I recommend that you look in the sales paper and circle some items, because whatever you get, this is what you're going to wear for the entire year. And my recommendation is that you use earth tones where you can match up, and people will think you got a closet full of clothes. As long as you use the earth tones, you can mix and match up real easy. It's got such great appeal, you know. And again, I mention this because of the thing where some people might not want to grow food in their gardens. They may just want to have that nice landscape, which is nice. It gives you a certain feeling when you go out in your environment and it's got those earth tones. And it's so mellowing and so relaxing. It brings out the hippie in me, you know, just loving nature. So these are some of the things that are available to us as natural uh, 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 amendments when we have a lacking in our soil. A lot of things center around the pH balance, the positive hydrogen levels, which they say it should be around 7 for optimum growth processes. But there are certain things that you can utilize to enhance that. Some people use potash and other things, but another amendment that I've used, because I go fishing. And as a fisherman, once you catch the fish, you clean them. Well, all of those intestines, those guts and so forth, I put them together, and I've done two different things with them. Number one, I buried some of them around fruit trees. The other is I get 40-gallon buckets and I put them in there and let the rainwater get in there. And over time, it creates what's called hydrogenized fish fertilizer. Hydrolyzed? This is the school teacher here. She didn't have to wake me up, but she's corrected me. 30 years as an educator helps correct other folks. But thank you very much for that unsolicited testimony. uh, but this is another means of natural fertilizer that's available to us. Again, you got that vision of what goes on out in the forest, the natural process. One of the things that we do is compost. And the way that we compost, I'll take discarded garbage cans, drill a couple of holes in them, one at 1 foot, one at 2 foot, take some PVC, drill some holes in it, run it through those holes so that it can aerate. And I'll start by putting about 3 or 4 inches of dirt. Then I'll put 3 or 4 inches of leaves that we've collected. Instead of throwing them away, we just bag them up and sit them by those garbage cans. And then I'll put some gooey stuff. What is gooey stuff? It's the banana peels, the orange peels, the apple cores, the eggshells, coffee grounds, no meats. and I put that gooey stuff on, and I repeat the process. 3-4 inches of dirt, 3-4 inches of leaves, more gooey stuff until it fills up. And once it turns black, you got some of the best compost that you'll ever find. And I fold it into the dirt where it's needed. Once every 3-4 years, we'll put some in different places that the plants might show a need for additional nutrients. But again, it eliminates waste and gives you some of the best soil enhancement that you could ever find. And the price again was time. So I wonder if there's any questions out there at this point that we might be able to field.
Yeah, Mike, we've had some comments, a couple people who have talked about doing their own gardening, and certainly understand where you're coming from as far as growing your own vegetables. Also, me personally, when you're talking about with the fish, that's part of the Three Sisters garden technique that the Native Americans used, was when they grew their corn, was to put some fish in the hole where they planted the seeds as, for fertilization. Because our audience is fairly experienced gardeners, I think they'd like to hear a lot about what specifically you're doing with Landmark as far as all those elements of it, the farmers market and the training and the diversion program and all that good stuff. And also give us an idea how big a piece of property you're talking about, if you would.
Okay, well, our facility, which is located at 2489 Carnes Avenue, is the southeast corner of Carnes at Marsh and Neal Street. Initially, we obtained the one plot from Shelby County government as a donation. And the plot next door became available. And we got that, and then plot across the street became available. And we got all three of them the same way, which basically comprises a half an acre. On the first plot was a building which had two sides to it. And in doing a little conversion, remodeling, or renovation, whichever term you prefer, we opened up a food pantry. When we opened up the food pantry, I made up this nice, pretty brochure and sent it out to different corporations. Nestle responded, said, look, we want to give you 10,000 DiGiorno pizzas. They're frozen. What do you want to do with them? I immediately went to the cold storage place down the street and asked them if they would hold them for us and let us get them a little at a time. And they agreed. So we started handing out 100, 150, 200 pizzas a day. And I tell you what, this was during the summer. And we had a line and not one disturbance, not one. It took about 4 months to hand out all the pizzas. And the guy, the rep from Nestle, he came out there a couple of times and he was just tickled. He just said, I don't see how you're doing it. And everybody's so orderly. And Karen was still teaching. And several of her buddies who were also educators came and created a filing system for us that we still use today, even though we've got it computerized. That original manual file system, the computer sits on top of the shelf where all of those file folders were originally placed. And one of the things that we discovered as we started growing food was that people had no nutritional education, no insights whatsoever. They had never heard of Swiss chard, arugula, and these are basic plants that provide great nutrition and health benefits. And we started giving it out at the food pantry, which acclimated more people to this type of food. And of course, we had those things which were culturally appropriate, like your collard greens, mustard greens, turnip greens, and some of the kales they wasn't familiar with, like the red Russian kale. And some people became so in love with it, they would clamor for it. When we were out, where's the red Russian kale? You got any more Swiss chard? And it made me happy that that would happen. And at the same time, we were developing the other side to be an indoor year-round farmers market, which took a little longer with the remodeling. But in the second parcel that is adjacent to the first, there was a duplex. And I'd been in the Honorable Judge Larry Potter's courtroom previously by taking over a court case on another property that we obtained and remodeling it successfully and getting clearance with use and occupancy permit, and he excused us from court with no cost, no cause. And in this instance, I wanted to dismantle the duplex, not just bulldoze it or tear it down. I wanted to dismantle it. And I had a few youngsters from juvenile court that I had been teaching home repair to. And I got me some orange paint, and I started putting X's on it. Once the Honorable Judge Larry Potter gave me his blessing and said, move forward with it, in spite of others who were against it, he said yes, because we had taken a 5,000 square foot facility and remodeled it, and it was up for demolition. So he said, this one is 1,200 square feet, shouldn't be a problem. And in dismantling it, I took the bricks loose first and sold a lot of them and gave a lot of them away. They're pretty yellow bricks. And we had the frame. So the non-load bearing members, these were real 2x4s, not this shaved 1 3/8, 1 7/8 by 3 7/8 stuff that you get now. And they just happen to be the back porch of the farmer's market now. Yes, they got reused. And again, my contention is stuff like that, 2x4s and various construction products like windows and doors, they're not like milk, cheese. They're not going to go bad. You sit them outside, they're not going to go bad. You may have a spot that you have to cut off, but the rest of it's still beneficial and useful. For those who are into the real estate and sweat equity thing, that's one of the mainstays. It's like putting a money tree in your backyard, but a different subject. We took the duplex down and we obtained funding from one of the local foundations to put up a hydroponics, well, an aquaponic. I call it the aqua tunnel. This high tunnel was not built to the same dimensions as the slab that the duplex sat on intentionally. I built it the size of an average 2-car garage, 20 by 24. The reason behind that was to show what could be done with a 2-car garage. With roughly a $5,000 investment, you can put hydroponics and aquaponics in that type of a structure, 20 by 24, 2-car garage, and within 2 years, you got the return of your initial investment. Our facility is going on 6 years old. That tunnel that I'm speaking of, that's the size of a 2-car garage, is going into its 6th year of operation, which means that we've had 4 years of return on investment. We got the return of investment in the first 2 years. Not to mention the fact that we know everything about the food that comes out of it. We know the hands that was on the food and what was on the hands when they touched the food. It's hard to say that when you go into the grocery store and pick that food up. Whose hands was on it? And what was on their hands when they were touching it? Not the most wholesome thought you can have. But that facility is an example of what sustainability can bring about in every instance. I would wager to think that on average, a person may spend at least $100 a week on groceries. What if you can cut that in half? And do nothing else but set up a college fund for your grandchildren, or to put it into silver or something that you might want to leave as a legacy. And at the same time, you've enhanced your quality of life by giving yourself food that you know everything about. It's highly nutritious and tasty. Karen, the lettuce that comes out of our aqua tunnel, how does it compare to lettuce in the store?
There's no comparison.
Now, along with the hydroponics in that same aqua tunnel, I built a little aquaponics facility that we keep tilapia in, and the tilapia provides the fertilization of the plants, and we get to eat the tilapia. Hey, everybody's not into tilapia, but again, I got a high quality product that I know everything about without having to wonder. It erases the question marks about quality. no concerns about toxic ingestion or spending my money for something that tastes less than what I expected. And being able to give that to someone else gives you a certain level of confidence because you know all about it. That's basically what happened with one portion of what I call garden number 2. Garden number 1 is that which is directly behind the building that we obtained from Shelby County government, which when we first started, my oldest son, his younger brother, and I, we knew nothing. And we put cantaloupe right next to cucumbers, right next to watermelon, and we had a proverbial jungle out there. But over time, and with various workshops and classes that we attended and research and information we found, we realized that that was a dumb thing to do, to put all that vine and stuff right next to each other. But in Garden 2, we originally had this book written by John Jeeves from Bountiful Garden, where we were attempting to grow a bunch of different stuff with 10-foot gardens using what's called the double dig method. Double dig is phenomenal, but it is strenuous work. And it saves the microbes that exist in the first 4 to 6 inches of the soil, as opposed to using tines on a tiller that kill those microbes as it goes across, loosening up the dirt. But we transferred Garden 2 from being a multi-crop garden into a fruit tree orchard. And we have several types of apples that cross-pollinate well together, several types of pears that cross-pollinate well together, and several types of plums that cross-pollinate together. And on the north side of that garden, we've placed different plants and herbs that are companions to the extent that they give off aromas that bugs don't like, which helps keep the pests away from our plants. And alongside that, we built the catfish pond. And fortunately, we had the benefit of a group of Chinese exchange students that came to us from Northwestern University that just happened to be mechanical engineering majors that put together our irrigation system that comes from the catfish pond and goes down the various walkways of the fruit tree orchard, so that when I open the shutoff valve to the catfish pond, that hydrolyzed fish fertilizer seeps into the walkways of the fruit tree orchard, and therefore is utilized by the roots of the fruit trees as fertilizer. So that's Garden 2. And then Garden 3, we've got a couple of high tunnels, a chicken coop, and some beehives. Along with that, there's about 14 peach trees and some other plants such as evening primrose, milk thistle, and we grow different beans and peas that are culturally appropriate. And one of the things that we do in the high tunnels is we rotate the various crops. We've got vendor relationships with a couple of major retailers that we sell to, both winter, spring, summer, and fall. Right now, we are growing carrots, tomatoes, and okra. In the fall, we'll switch that up to the collard greens, mustard greens, turnip greens, and kale. So one of the things that we do is we don't use the same high tunnels for the same crops over and over again, so as to disrupt the possibility of insect infestation. They don't get to set up camp. They can't make a home there. As soon as they get ready to make their home, we've come and bulldozed it. So that helps to cut down on the incidence of insect infestation. We did one study with Professor Michael Best, who's a professor of agricultural economics at Tennessee Tech University, where it was a cherry tomato research project. The average yield in Tennessee had been 12 pounds per plant. In the first year, we got infested with spider mites, aphids, and whiteflies, and it was a catastrophe. We were using the Florida weave method for hanging the cherry tomato plants. Upon further investigation, we switched to what's called tomato clasp assembly, where there's strings that hang down from wire that we placed approximately 10 feet within the high tunnels. And the tomato plants are strung up on each one of these strings. It causes a better aeration, which helps the plant to grow. And alongside at the front and back of the tunnel, we placed basil and marigolds because they emit an aroma that's a common enemy to aphids, whiteflies, and spider mites. Needless to say, by the end of the project, we had 18 pounds per plant yield, which set a new record for the state of Tennessee. Any other questions, comments, observations?
A lot of comments and observations have come in. I think everybody's admiring what all you've got on such a small piece of property, and your use of natural, using crop rotations and the fish waste for keeping everything growing really well and everything. And one question was about since you mentioned early on about preserving food via canning or freezing, do you all do any classes on that, or have you had someone come out and give you classes, or how has that worked out?
Well, Karen here is a FDA certified food processor, and our facility is a state of Tennessee licensed food manufacturing plant. And we've got an abundance of equipment that we have been the beneficiary of from different grants that we've received from foundations. So it's just a matter of you guys chiding Karen here to give another class. She's giving classes, I think it was that Rose College students. We got a group from the University of Memphis now, a bunch of grad students that we want to get involved with in a healthy eating program this fall. And there's something that her email address is Karen@landmarktraining.org. Ring her up.
Yeah, I think it'd be great. Maybe you could talk a little bit about the youth training. I know you when you and I talked, you talked about the the community service work for the court diversion program, and also about some of the youth that are doing internships. Can maybe tell us a little bit about how that all works for you, or how you manage all that?
Well, Steve, in my imagination, I would like to tell them to put their left hand over their left ear and let me talk in the right ear. Because initially, quite often, they don't get it. And there's a couple of things that we have out there to help them with their focus. One, cuss words cost $1 a piece. We pay them a stipend. And since I got first count of their money, pretty soon I put a note when we make those extractions, and I put an index card in there with their envelope with their check in it so that they know how much was extracted and why. And pretty soon, dollar dissection changes a person's idea about the things that they're doing that's not right. Another thing that we have is called the ABC Challenge. And what that is, there's 26 letters in the alphabet. And I tell them, if you take each letter, find a word that you can define and articulate in a sentence for each letter, and I give you 26 bucks out of my pocket, and you do that once a month. And what it's done is expanded their thought processes and allow them to develop a greater vocabulary, which at the same time enhances their self-confidence and ability to talk and comprehend in just about any environment, which unknowing to them prepares them for life as an adult. And for those who go on to additional educational studies, such as college, it gives them a certain preparedness to be able to take the different examinations and classes that are tests that are necessary to get scholarships. So the thing that I've seen that I think excites me the most is that many of them come from environments where the positive aspects were minimal at best. And they come out there and they start soaking it up like a sponge, realizing that there's more to life than what they had experienced up to that point. And the few that have graduated from college, I really get a kick out of, because they had been kicked to the curb as juvenile delinquents, castaways, if you will, only to come to recognize that they are something worthwhile, that they've got qualities that are beneficial to be productive human beings and contributors to society. So this is something that I really get a kick out of, because they have so much untapped and unknown potential that when given the opportunity, they shine. They shine. They develop skills that they didn't know were beneficial, such as teamwork, discipline, self-reliance. And these are character traits that they'll utilize for the rest of their lives. But you just have to give them a chance.
So I know people are interested in touring the gardens and seeing the site, and also possibly either volunteering or supporting in some other way. What can people do to find out about visiting and also maybe being involved?
Well, aside from coming by, we got a website, and on the website, one of the pages is for volunteers. Sign up. And we also have an email address where if you want to do a tour, we can schedule a tour. But one of the biggest things that we've experienced over the years of our operation that's been most beneficial to us is volunteerism. And so many, matter of fact, a couple of our board members became board members because they came wanting to volunteer to learn about gardening because they had a church that they wanted to do a garden for. And they learned gardening and they helped out at the church and they became board members, and they've been board members with us for some time now. And I have to say, we have a hands-on approach that it basically deals with something that I like to call comprehension, recall, application. It's a simple method for learning just about anything. You comprehend the basic principles behind it. You continue doing it so you recall that those things are fundamental, and you apply it. And as you apply it and you get the positive results, it fuels itself. So yeah, we welcome volunteers. Over the years, we've had college students from as far away as Boston University to the University of San Diego in California, or University of California, San Diego, and all in between. And some of them have left a great imprint. Landmark itself is not the work of Mike and Karen, it's the work of a lot of hands. City Year, the AmeriCorps volunteer program, where the teachers and teachers to be come together and put their hands in the soil, have been a great help to us over the years. Last year was an exception because of the pandemic, but and some of the stuff shows because by myself, I don't get as much done as those youngsters. My bender don't work as good as theirs does. After a few bends, mine say, hey, you better sit down. but these young 18, 19, 20-something year olds, they finish, they go out and party. I go home and put an ice pack on. Yeah. So yes, and we don't have what's called high demands as far as time goes. To gardening, to a certain extent, time is irrelevant. What's more important is that you do it right the first time. Because if you don't, and you have to do double work, you wind up spending more time.
So the farmer's market and the shop are open certain days of the week, or when are they open normally?
I'm typically there from 11 a.m. to 3 p.m. Monday through Saturday. I don't
Okay.
tell people there I'm on Sunday because somebody might get a fainting spell. Oh, he has no religious aspirations.
Okay. So, and then also one of our audience that has visited you before says that you've got organic herbal products that you have in your store.
Yeah, some of the things that I had mentioned at the outset of this meeting that dealt with you are what you eat and basically utilizing your scissors to go out and get the things you need versus prescription and taking it to a pharmacy stem from the fact that we grow different plants, herbs, and roots that are proven to be beneficial for many physical issues. So it started with one of my granddaughters who had brain tumors and another who had eczema, and then to myself who, as a Vietnam vet, had a number of different issues that I no longer take pharmaceuticals. I no longer have need for pharmaceuticals. And we've got quite a few testimonies. That's a different website though. That's happyteaforyou.com. That's happy tea, the number 4, the letter U.com, where those products, we got pain cream that doesn't smell and it's all natural. And I can pronounce all of the ingredients without stumbling or having Karen to correct the words because it's just simple stuff, you know, and that's basically what we contend with is that when you think about chemists at the pharmaceutical companies, what they're doing is mimicking the molecular structure of plants with chemical compounds to create the pharmaceuticals. The difference being we use the plants, which may take a little longer to saturate into your system to be beneficial, but there's no negative side effects associated with them as it is with the toxic aspects of chemicals. So yeah, we've got some different what we call herbal remedies and wellness products that we've developed and utilized out of a need and shared them with others, and it's kind of grown over the years to where we've got a following. You know,
We have 18 medicinal teas, arthritis, anti-cancer, antivirus, high blood pressure, uh, diabetes, low anxiety teas. We have teas for all of for a lot of different issues.
The ups and downs of life, huh? And the curves that get thrown at you so often.
Yeah.
You know, some of us already know about this. You know, think about it. Okay, there was the actor Steve McQueen. In the 70s, he was down with cancer. He went to Mexico. And he wouldn't do a television interview, but he did a microphone interview. And he said that Mexico is leading the way with a cure for cancer called Laetrile. Well, to this day, Laetrile is still illegal in the United States. And Laetrile is derived from vitamin B17, which the Food and Drug Administration says doesn't exist. But if you take an apricot and you open it up and you crack the seed open and you take the pulp out of that seed, it's pure B17, which once it saturates into your system, kills mutated blood cells, which is how cancer is derived. But we already know this. But will we employ it in our everyday life? It's simple.
Speaking of teas, I know that there's a My Cup of Tea folks located near you. Do you all have anything to do with them, or is that totally
Carrie
separate?
Moore. Carrie Moore is a wonderful person, and the thing that they do is to take residents who might not have any educational background or sales skills and put them in the position where they can develop their own business, becoming self-sufficient on that level. And while her operation differs from ours to that extent, we admire what she does because it's helping people. And at Landmark, we work to benefit other people. And
Right.
likewise with My Cup of Tea, they have a similar position. So we're like, we got our pom poms out cheering for what she does.
Right.
You know?
And they have, I know they've diversified into some other services like, some other professional skills, laundry services and furniture repair and stuff like that. So, between what they've got going on over there and what you guys have got going, I mean, Orange Mound is just a hotbed of exciting ideas.
Well, Steve, I appreciate you saying that, and something that I have had the opportunity to come to grips with, having lived in different places and worked in different low investment communities, otherwise known as ghettos, is that a lack of the velocity of money. When money is in a neighborhood and it only touches the hands of the residents one or two times, there's a lacking. When that same money, let's say that a dollar touches four, five, six, seven hands in the neighborhood before it leaves the neighborhood, it's got a vibrancy that creates a vibrancy that enhances the velocity of money, which does away with abandoned houses and people standing around with nothing to do because they're involved in the stream of activities that create an economic flow. So putting people in the position where they have skills to earn honest income is a beautiful thing. And this is what touches the beneficial aspect of the work we do. You don't see it. It's not the type of stuff that spotlights us shine down on, but you benefit from it when you leave the mall, go into your car, and there's nobody hanging around to accost you. When the crime rate goes down because you have so many people no longer operating in survival mode because they've got a food pantry that they can come to, they know they can get something to eat that's open Monday through Friday, as opposed to lurking in the corners to try to take something from somebody else that they've earned. So this is part of what is considered mission work. We're not looking to beat our chest about it, and it's not uh, just us. Again, it's many hands involved in it, and in many corners besides the corner that Landmark has. So, yeah, we welcome all of those who want to walk this walk.
That's wonderful. And that's why it's so important that, people who are looking for organizations to support either through their time or their talents or their money, to keep you guys in mind because it really does have a ripple effect. I've got one more question for you. Then I guess we probably should wrap it up because we've about hit our hour here. Somebody asked about your seed selections or where you get your seeds from. Do you have any favorite sources that you want to give a shout out to?
Well, again, for the most part, we harvest our own seeds. And back when we started, and my son had these 40-gallon garbage bags of open pollinated organic seeds that he had purchased from different places, we recognized the cost of those seeds is so high that we started harvesting, letting our plants go to seed, harvesting the seeds. And one of the cool things that happened along the way, we found out that cilantro, when it goes to seed, becomes coriander. And coriander, as an herb, has medicinal values, which includes eradicating depression and alleviating Alzheimer's. One of the side effects of coriander is if you overdose on it, you might go in the store and start buying stuff for everybody. That basket over there, hold it, I'll pay for that. Hey, you, come here. You get in this line over here. I got another credit card, hold on. And you just get so lighthearted. That's one of the side effects, that's the negative side effect of coriander.
Yeah.
You might have somebody, like they say, Leon Coco's girlfriend used to spend $80,000, $90,000 a month, and they had to kind of rescue him from her because he didn't care. He was just
Yeah.
like, yeah, we know.
Well, Mike and Karen, y'all have been our coriander tonight. I think you've left a lot of people here lighthearted and feeling very positive about what goes on, and what is going on, and the community building and the skills building and the investment in tomorrow that y'all are doing. We really appreciate you. We appreciate your time tonight. Everybody in the chat box, I've given you the website for landmarktraining.org. And then also, if you need to reach out to Mike or Karen, then they are Mike at Landmark or Karen at landmarktraining.org. So please reach out. I think a couple of people would love to maybe negotiate some, again, we've got generations of people who didn't grow up doing any kind of canning and stuff. So people would love to have some basic skills in food preservation. So please, you'll probably be getting some emails, I'm thinking. So, but we appreciate your time so much tonight. And thank you so much to both of you. So
We appreciate you having us, and hopefully we'll get to see many of you guys eyeball to eyeball.
great. Sounds terrific. So I'm gonna pause the recording, then I've got a few announcements just for the end of the evening for everybody.